Well, that was a lot of questions, and I thank you for being patient with me and going through that. Probably a little different than you're used to from payroll guys talking to you, asking a lot of operational questions. But there is a method to my madness, so we'll get into the meat of that right now.
Okay.
If you've actually had to meet with payroll people in the past, and the ones you've met with, they probably all had, including us, had a similar conversation with you about how they can save you money on your payroll costs, 10 to 20%. That is not what I want to talk about. What I would like to talk to you about is how ADP is positioned to affect a larger number. And that larger number is your cost of goods sold. That's the $15 million number we were talking about earlier. How can we impact the labor, tax, benefits, and workers' compensation? And by impacting those things, we can impact the operating expenses and the taxes. So my question to you is, would you rather have 20% of $15,000 or 1 to 2% of $15 million?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear.
So what I want to talk about is how ADP can impact that $15 million by 1 to 2%. Can I do the whiteboard if you don't
Sure,
mind?
yeah.
So we talked about your strategy currently is growth, building out your infrastructure to support that growth, right? There's the geography of growth through acquisition. But you also have investors now, so you have to be very wary of making sure that that investment pays off. So maximizing that investor involvement, right? You don't want to have to go back and ask for another round of funding. Those are the reasons you're in business. Over here is what's happening on a daily basis. So you have the support staff with you, your HR, payroll, admin folks that are currently spending their time, payroll, benefits, right, compliance, taxes, reporting. I mean, there's a lot of things that they do day in and day out. We refer to these as the tactical, and over here is the strategic. This is the why you're in business, this is the because. And what we found through meeting with all the prospects and customers with ADP is that they're spending 80 to 90% of their time on the tactical, which only allows about 10 to 20% of their time to be spent on the strategic. And there's a reason for that, and it's understandable. These things need to get done, right? There are immediate results, impact if you don't do these things. This stuff can kind of wait. You can do the bigger things, maybe get to them tomorrow. If you don't pay somebody, or you're not meeting the requirements of compliance, there's penalties, right? So these things are the high risk, low reward activities that need to get done every day. And what ends up happening is these really end up cannibalizing and eclipsing the strategic. Can you kind of see how that would work?
I think so, yeah.
So to give you an idea, there's a company I just worked with in the past few weeks, and they grew fast. They went from 80 to 300 employees in the course of 3 years, and they literally spent almost all their time here. They had so many different things going on and so many systems as they grew that this is kind of what their payroll looked like. And you may recognize this, it might be pretty similar to what you do today. So they had to take the salary employees, needed to do a time card. They have hourly employees that have a time clock, right? They had to figure out benefits, garnishments, taxes. The big one, right? The big mess that they had was time off and accruals. Just the time off and accruals actually involves 8 different spreadsheets and like 5 different people, and that's not a joke. That's very serious. So this whole process actually involved probably 10 people and a bunch of different spreadsheets, a lot of phone calls and emails. So that's just to get the information in. Then on the other side, you have to have the checks need to get paid, right? Again, taxes and compliance and reports. All the things that they have to do over here, right? You have your reconciliation, benefits, all that stuff. So all the things that need to happen after that goes in. what we call this is the noise, right? While all this is going on, they're trying to do these things, they have employee questions, managers coming in. And I look at it kind of like this. So if I'm the payroll person, I liken that to myself. So in my house, I do the dishes. My wife gets home before I do. So after dinner, I'm the cleanup guy. I don't know if that's how it goes with you, but it's just how it happens. Problem is that I can never get the dishes done in the 20 minutes that it should take. I have 3 kids. They're 3, 5, and 7. So whenever I start the dishes, with that goal of being done in 20 minutes so I can just sit down on the couch, inevitably, there's about 50 different things going on. I have pulling on my leg, and I have a drink, they're fighting, right? They're yelling at each other, someone fell down and bumped their head, my wife's upstairs trying to do some laundry. I mean, there's a million things going on, and this ends up taking me like an hour, hour and a half to do what should take 20 minutes. Does that make sense?
Sure.
That's how I see the noise here. I know it's pretty simplified, but that's how I see it. There's a reason that happens. There's a way that you got there, and not just you, by the way. So what happened when you started, right? You had to hire people, so you needed to put a system in place to pay them, right? So you have a system here to pay. Then you needed to figure out benefits, right? So you got benefits over here. You had to figure out time, so you might have time clocks for your hourly employees. For billing and other reasons, you have an ERP over here. You might have another way that you track benefits over here as another person. These are the spreadsheets that I was talking about before. And we refer to these as silos. They all have similar information, redundant information, but they don't ever talk to each other, right? So you have all this information in here that's being repeated over and over, and none of it shares. So what it creates is these seams, right? PricewaterhouseCoopers did a study on this, and they referred to these seams as seams costs. So in between each silo, you have the seams, and there's costs related with those seams. And they found that on average, these seams costs are $200 per employee per year. Not each one, but total. So with 150 employees, that's a pretty substantial amount of money, right? Mm-hmm. But you're looking to grow that into 300 employees, 400 employees. That's an even more substantial number. You have investors that are going to be looking at that. Is this a place that we can affect to make things better? So there are some solutions to this, right? There's a bunch of different ways you can handle it. I don't know which one is going to be right for you, but these are some of the options that you have. You could add more people, right? You could bring in some more admins to help deal with the noise. You could add technology, right? Help with some of the noise. You could do a combination of people and technology. You could outsource part of it, or you could outsource all of it. Get rid of all that noise together. What you find is that each step you take into that lowers your risk. So the further you go, the safer your bet. Somewhere in here is a solution for your company that can help us affect that cost of goods sold and make things more efficient. As I said, I don't really know what that is, but we do have a process for finding out. What that involves is what we call the diagnostic or the analysis. And that's really us sitting down with our business consultants, someone on the phone with you, taking the time to go pretty in-depth into the weeds with your day-to-day tasks and how operations work here, so that they can come back and provide us with a picture of how things work and what the recommendations would be to fix it based on this. By the way, there is no other company out there that can do all these things. We're the only one. And if anybody comes to you and tells you that they can do all these things with their one product, they can't. We literally have thousands of products. So somewhere in here, we can impact you to the positive. That being said, does the analysis sound like something that would be worthwhile to you to see if we can help?
Sure.
Great. Obviously, that's going to require a few things, not the least of which is time. It's probably 6 to 8 hours worth of conversation here. So along with that, a couple things we need. We obviously need you inside, making sure that things happen as needed. We're going to need time, like I said, and we're going to need a place to get together afterwards to go over what we found and the recommendations that we come up with. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, let's set it up.
Awesome. Let's sit down and see if we can come up with a date that might work for everybody.
All right.
Great.